It's live. They said turn them on.
Saw you. That was nice. Six o'clock. Calls meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Mubauer,
Here.
council members Robinson,
Here.
Recklo,
Here.
Vogel,
Here.
Ludwig,
Here.
All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion?
Make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Vogel. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda. Do we have anything we wanted to pull or discuss? Mark?
I've just got two quick questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Number one would be H, under the material for stall. It was $14,879, changes approved this month, and I'm just curious what changes those were in material. There were no changes in labor, it was just the material.
Mayor and council, I would have to go back and look through our past PCOs as to which ones those are reflective of specifically.
Is that just over the last 30 days or is that?
We haven't had any PCOs come through for probably the last 90 days, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
So I'd have to go back and research which ones.
Okay. And my other question was, Jay, this is probably for Darcy, I don't know, property insurance, 19 different properties, does that include all our parks and everything, or what is that, what are we talking about?
Oh, when we're paying the property?
Property insurance.
Yep, that's just because its bill is coded to several different departments. So it's all of our property, it's all of our vehicles, it's risk, it's, what else is in there? There's some for bonds and stuff like that. So it's all of our property.
Gotcha. I thought it was maybe just physical property. Like
No,
land.
there's more to
Okay,
it than that.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. That's all I got.
Anything, Sarah?
No. Questions?
Crystal?
No.
Yep.
No, sir.
All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Now, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Udvig. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Krecklo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, meeting open to the public. Do we have anybody? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8, old business. Item A, ordinance of the city of St. Francis to regulate cannabis business registration, second reading.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is a second reading of our business regulation license for registration of cannabis and THC products in the city of St. Francis. The zoning committee will take this discussion up for our zoning ordinances on Wednesday, and our fee schedule addressed the fees that are associated with this. We have talked about this a couple of times. I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is solely for the business registration, which has now been pushed further into the spring. So we continue to see the state push that further and further into next year.
Questions, Kevin?
No, sir, no questions here.
No questions.
Mark?
No.
There.
Nope.
I've done myself, so with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve item A, second reading, ordinance of the city of St. Francis to regulate cannabis business registration. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Kreckler. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. And it is a roll call, given it's an ordinance.
Mayor Mulbauer,
Aye.
council members Udvig. Aye. Vogel.
Aye.
Krecklo.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. New business, item A, memorandum of agree for LELS 319 police officers.
Mayor and council, attached is a memorandum for an agreement for our police officers. This is to extend the Christmas Eve holiday from 4 hours to 8 hours. Currently, this is in our non-union personnel policy. They are requesting to match that policy. That I have to answer any questions.
Questions, Mark?
Got no question.
Oh, I have no questions.
Crystal?
My only question was, is we just wrapped up negotiations with LELS. Why wasn't this done then? Is it, why now and not a month or two ago when we were doing the negotiations?
So Mayor and council, they, sorry, they actually had discussed this in the beginning of the year between the two contracts. When it came time to their formal request, it was not presented within that request, so it was not part of the initial contract itself.
No questions.
I just thought it was odd too that it was there now. But I don't see an issue with it. With that, we'll entertain a motion. We just accept it or agree to it, or how do you want to?
Approve the memorandum of agreement.
Okay. We'll entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Councilmember Vogel. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Udvig. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, pretty much the same thing for 411 sergeants.
Correct, Mayor and council, this is the exact same thing. We did just finalize their contracts as well. They are looking to add a full 8 hours to Christmas Eve, as it is also a half day for them. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have nothing, Kevin.
No questions, sir.
Crystal?
No questions.
No question.
Answer.
No questions.
All right, with that, we will entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson. Do we have a second? I will.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Krecklo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item C, comprehensive sanitary sewer and municipal water plan.
You snuck up on me that one fast.
You're welcome.
So Jenny sent out a link to the full report. I just have a short presentation to kind of summarize what's in the report. Basically, the report had three purposes: is to review the existing conditions of the sewer and water system, provide the size and alignment for future trunks, and provide some cost estimates for the future trunk facilities. You may be aware of this, but generally the existing conditions or the existing system, there was two big projects done in the 70s, 1973 and 1979. That's kind of when started the city system. Beyond that, there was a few projects scattered in there in the 80s, early 90s. But most of them, the system was built in the later mid to early 2000s, the 90s and the 2000s. So relatively speaking, the city system is fairly new other than the 1970 projects. Three segments were identified from, again, that 70s project that are deficient in basically size. The city hasn't had any problems really with the sewer itself, but it's getting nearer towards its capacity. This here exhibit from the report highlights those three segments. Segment one being the gravity system along 47 from lift station 1, which is the main lift station that feeds the plant, up to 233rd Avenue. And then that associated force main, which comes from lift station 14 and dumps into that gravity system. Lift station 14 is one of the major lift stations that will collect all the wastewater basically from the north future. And it does collect fairly decent area already in here. So those two systems are near or at their capacity. And then the third system is this along Rum River Boulevard and 227th. Again, that was a 1970s project. This gravity line collects the second major lift station, which is just off the page here, and dumps into this manhole up here on the top and then drains again to the lift station 1. So we'll talk a little bit about the future improvements later, but it appeared to be the most cost-effective thing was to take the force main here, bypass this segment right into this system on Trunk Highway 47. That Rum River Boulevard segment was redone about 15 years ago. The water was redone, the streets were redone, and it's in pretty good condition. The sewer is fairly deep, so the thought is it's fairly reasonable to bypass this force main. That has all the flow, and just probably line that sewer someday if it needed it. So once we take that force main, disconnect it from this portion here and put it into there, then this line will not be under capacity. So that's kind of the route right now that we're thinking we go with that. As far as the water system, it's in fairly good shape. There's no major facility upgrades anticipated. You know, your water treatment plant's fairly new. Your wells are good shape. Your storage, you have plenty of storage right now. So you have had issues with your valves and your hydrants on that 1970s water main, and I think that's near complete.
It is.
Replaced. The city's been working on that the last 5 years, replacing those valves and hydrants. And then there is some 1970 water main left. That's this exhibit here. That stuff highlighted in orange, again, is from the 70s. That's recommended to be replaced as you do your street reconstructs. So some of that area in here will be done this year with those projects. If you were around, we did some of this several years ago, I think 2020. Some of that 1970 stuff was replaced already. So moving towards a fairly decent, solid water system. Moving on to the existing future trunks. So we started with the land use maps and the existing land uses to determine ERUs, or equivalent residential units per acre. So everything is basically boiled down to how many homes could be associated with an acre with the different land uses. So that was used to determine how much flow would be in the urban service area and the urban reserve area. And then this table from the report kind of gives you an illustration. So low density residential, we use 3 units per acre, up to high density residential, which would be like your high-rise apartments, 25 units per acre. One item of note on here, you see the wild and scenic. That's that area the DNR has now restricted with your last comp plan. So that whole area went from 3 units per acre to 0.4. This is your land use map from the comp plan. This is the entire city shown here. I think it's worth noting, basically, the urban service area is that orange line. That was considered for future sewer and water. And then you have your urban reserve, this pink area. Beyond that, the comprehensive plan doesn't slate any of this outside of that for sewer and water. So that is not considered in the pipe sizing of this urban area. And then this is just a blow up of the land use. Again, the orange is the urban, what you're calling the urban service area in your comp plan, and then this pink is urban reserve. So again, that, all that flow from there was considered in pipe sizing. Then that red dark hatch, that's that wild and scenic that the DNR had restricted that we just talked about.
Well, that pocket on 239th there, that's struck me as odd when I was looking at the packet. Between the orange and the purple on the right-hand side there, the 239th Ave.
Yeah, that's yeah, I guess I thought you guys could see my mouse, so I'm over here pointing at stuff you can't see. Apologize, I just looked at the screen, but that's rural residential.
Okay.
So it's already the 2.5 acre lots. So I assume the comp plan's logic was it's pretty unlikely that it will develop. But there, you know, there are some, you do have some assumptions of capacity in the system that can pick up areas like this, but you know, it's not going to be planned for 300-400 acres to the east or west. So, but if that little pocket ever redeveloped, you probably would have capacity for that.
I just thought it was odd. It was kind of in the middle there.
So again, to further size these things, 3 phases were set up in the urban service area. They correlate to the comprehensive plan. And then a 4th phase was the urban reserve area. That this map just shows that the different phases that correlate with the comprehensive plan. Phase 1 is kind of the existing and near future development area. Phase 2 is north of there. There's a little piece of property to the south or west that was planned, and then again the urban reserve in the east. And then this also shows that area that St. Francis services the ponds in Oak Grove. That's that yellow shading. So with that, we took all the data, formulated some alignments and sizes for the future trunks, and that's kind of what this exhibit is. And they're all numbered. You can see that kind of that segment along Trunk Highway 60 or 47 there as that's the segments that we're trying to, Arcade is trying to get some legislative money for. Because those segments, we'd like to, of course, it makes a lot of sense to do those with the Trunk Highway 47 project. And just lastly, again, we did some estimating of costs. And that again is a figure in the plan study. And a lot of these costs would be, you know, developer driven. And that's why you do charge trunk fees to developers to help pay the cost of some of these trunks. With that, if you have any questions.
Questions, Kevin?
Yes, I do. I got a couple. When you say at capacity, what do you mean? The line size will take it or the capacity? So if any modification had to be done, the lines would have to be bigger.
Correct.
And is there currently like concrete down there now or is it PVC piping or?
PVC.
Okay. And then did you say a line or line the sewer? Were you talking about relining the piping or?
We would reline the sewer instead of pulling it all out, putting all new manholes in.
Right,
They have a technique where they can push through a
sleeve it.
sleeve it,
Okay.
and then they blow it up to cure it in place, and then
Wow. That's amazing. All right, then the side question, this is actually for Paul. Months ago, we had a customer on Pedersen Avenue, Pedersen Street with using bottled water, et cetera, et cetera. Can you give us I know we got plenty of time, but can you take a snapshot and tell us where we're at on that? Is that person still using bottled water?
No, they are completely hooked up. Everything is squared away. And I talked to him maybe a month ago or so, delighted with the city's water pressure and enjoying longer showers now. So
And again, the residents, there were 2 on one side and 1 on the other, still decided to pass it this time.
they did.
So they'd have to pay, they'd incur some costs when when it comes time.
Correct. So as we discuss that case by case. So
And as far as expenses, how did that, you don't have to get into the exact dollars and cents, but did we help them in any fashion, or did they bear most of the burden themselves, or how'd that work out?
The majority of the project was covered by a grant from, well, they'll work with Anoka County or have worked with Anoka
Okay.
County. And then, we had a fraction of it as well, and they're working with us on that.
Okay, Great.
They claimed responsibility for all of it.
I didn't mean to go down that rabbit trail, but I just brought to mind, and we hadn't talked about it for a while, so. Well, that's good, they're served and we're taking care of business, so.
Correct.
That's all I have, thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Crystal?
And I didn't have any questions.
Mark?
Just a couple questions. So in order to do the other phases, I assume you've got to fix 1, 2, and 3 under the fixed list before we can go to the other phases, correct?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, they're getting close to capacity, but I think the worst one is Rum River one. That's already surcharging when they turn the lift station on. The pipe already just surcharges up into the manhole. So that's probably the worst one. The other one still has a little capacity left, but before you go too much further north, correct, that'd be something you'd want to think about.
And with the Highway 47 thing, it's conceivably another 3 years.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
assume we're gonna be redoing those lines at that
right,
point. is my
correct.
understanding.
That'd be the time to do them.
And just for my curiosity, the way you had them numbered for the future, 1, 2, and 3, that's not the order they'd be done in, obviously.
Yeah, that's a little confusing. My 1, 2, and 3 were
If it's just top down, I get it.
efficient
Yeah.
and they don't correlate with
Okay,
the other map. Yeah, correct.
yeah, that's all I've got.
I don't have any questions on this, Mayor.
You kind of answered some of my questions. I know right now we're seeking assistance, I guess, for our Highway 47 project still. You mentioned a lot of these costs are developer driven, and my question, I don't know how much it's relevant after you said that, is what's the cost effect on the rates for the users that we currently have, or are those going to be affected by this plan, I guess, was kind of my concern. And I don't know if it'd be you or Darcy or kind of where we'd go with.
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be the next step if you want to take this. That wasn't really the scope of this plan, but that would be something you'd maybe want to look at. Take these costs and the developable area to see where we're at with our trunk fees, to see if they're reasonable, or part of that comes down to you can only charge so much too before you drive away
Right.
development, so.
Nope, that makes sense.
So,
Yep, go
one
ahead.
more question. So if you were to start on one, it would be that segment 3 on the one. Just if you could go back to that map quick, please. That's the one in the worst shape, not the future one,
Yeah, that'd be, correct, this one.
yep, okay.
And again, that one, the current plan is not to replace that whole sewer. It's to bypass this 12-inch force main on bridge. That's, I mean, it's not cheap, but it's relatively cheap compared to removing a 15 to 20-foot sewer, replacing the road, water main. And we're talking of orders of magnitude of millions here, so it's a relatively inexpensive fix to just bypass that segment.
To piggyback on that same question, if it's roughly 15 years since we redid that street where segment 3 kind of runs there, what's the expected maintenance schedule for that one? When would we look at that street again?
On Mayor and Council, on Rum River here?
Yep.
I'd have to look at the schedule. I know we have it on it. And if we're doing what Craig's talking about, we wouldn't have to touch the street. We'd line it and then we could bore
You're probably still 25, 30 years out from doing a major reconstruct on the road.
Yeah.
And the water main's new. They did replace the water main, so.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, with that, we will entertain a motion to approve the comprehensive sanitary sewer and municipal water plan.
So move.
Motion by Councilmember Vogel. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. One thing I do want to reiterate before we move on too is we talk about costs and all that stuff with for our water users and whatnot, or people in the Muse area, which is municipal utility service area, the people on city sewer and water. These aren't things that we look forward to, but they are necessary costs that we have to look into. So for the future, I just want to reiterate that and let you know we're not excited to have to look into that at all. So moving on, meeting open to the public, second segment. Do we have anybody that would like to speak? Yeah, nobody.
Mayor?
Yes.
May we go back to item 8A? There was a resolution 2024-47 for the summary publication that we missed.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that on here in my agenda. Thank you. So before we move on, we will, wonder if I have it on mine.
See it.
It's on the agenda item itself.
Yeah.
It just wasn't on the actual agenda
Got
top
it.
page.
So we entertain a motion for resolution 2024-47, to publish ordinance 338. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Udvig. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that.
Thank
And moving on now to meeting open to the public, which I don't think we'll have anybody. So nobody stood up last time. Seeing none, we'll move on to reports. Fire Department monthly report for November.
Mayor and Council, for your review is the Fire Department monthly report for the month of November. Again, pleased to report that our response times are exceeding our goal of less than 10 minutes at 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Excuse me. And we seem to have a trend line declining for the month of November, year over year, which we're pretty excited about as well. Run volume for the month of November was 62 runs on the month, which again is a little bit of a decrease from years 21 and 22. On the flip side, we have an average number of 7 firefighters responding per incident, which we continue to see a positive trend and increase in the number of firefighters responses, which is always encouraging. And our run distribution between fire and EMS runs on the month was 43 EMS runs versus 18 fire runs. On our variance usage, we're a little bit light, but we are happy to report that we only noted 2 ambulance response times over 20 minutes for the month. So again, we're still seeing that kind of variant between month to month. We're still hoping that there's some relative stability in that, but we'll see how the next few months trend out. And for our fire inspections on the month, we had 3 initial inspections with 1 re-inspection for a total of 4 site visits on the month. And as you can see, our schedule is getting pretty static now, where we're getting into a good spot where we can replicate our fire inspections year over year now. So that's really positive to see as well for predictability standpoint. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Question, Mark?
Just, it probably leads to a bigger discussion. Like I told you, I'd like to
Sure.
sit down with you at some point in time, but I'm just curious. So if the number of responses, find it here. Calls for service basically stayed the same as 2023. And you said the average number of firefighters is up to 7.
Yes.
I'm just curious, I mean, is there a happy medium though? I mean, why do we want 7 firefighters going to a scraped knee call? Kind of a.
Sure, absolutely. The challenge that we have is every one of our firefighters really gets to make their own schedule based on their availability, right? So if we only want to call out a certain number or structured number of staff, there's 2 aspects that need to be accounted for. If we're going to require people to be available, whether they're at the station or at home, like an on-call, then we have to compensate them for that time, right? So there is a cost. Telling somebody that they have to be available and not compensating for that time isn't something legally we are allowed to do. The truth of the matter, and we've had this conversation around the fire service for the last 50 years, we could have 100 firefighters and 1 call go off regardless of the acuity, right? Could be, to your example, a scraped knee or a building on fire. If all 100 of them are not available, you're still getting 0, right? So it is a bit of, we're trying to front load because we don't know what we're going to get. For example, we had 2 calls last week during the day where I was the only one that responded to both of those calls, even though we have 27 firefighters on staff. Conversely, we could have a call at 10 o'clock at night and we get 17, right? So it's about trying to create some level of predictability within an unpredictable system, if that makes sense.
It does. I think it still bears further conversation. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I'll have that at some other point with you, but I mean, because I could just see it. I mean, if you get up to 10 firefighters per call or whatever. I don't know. I think there's got to be a way of,
They don't all necessarily go out on the call all the
Correct.
time.
Well,
I'd be
look for
more than happy to have that discussion with you.
perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's all I got.
yeah.
I don't have any questions. Could you report again?
Kevin?
A couple questions. Can you give us a report on the Bethel progress currently, the evaluation, et cetera?
So we do have the initial draft from the consultant. We're doing our internal reviews. We're setting up a time to meet here after the holidays to kind of go over any edits that we may have. Both Kate and I have reviewed it, and there's a couple small things like grammatical errors that we need to get fixed. But the meat and potatoes are truly there. He's starting to work towards drafting a potential actual JPA agreement. But functionally, internally, things continue to work very well. Much like we had our stand on the fire truck last week, Bethel had one on Sunday as well. So we're really trying to be diligent on making sure that we're bringing this closer to one organization that operates as one rather than two independents that are combined. So I'm pleased with the progress up to this point. I anticipate shortly after the first discussions again.
And then when do you think you actually put a ribbon on it and say it's a done deal?
Hopefully by the end of 25.
Really, that far out?
You know, I think when we get to the point of actually discussing the JPA, and we start framing the mechanics of the finance piece, I think that's where we'll probably have a fair amount of discussion. But I'm optimistic that we would be able to turn this around within a year.
Did their council dynamics change anything as far as that, or was there much change? I know the mayor was back on.
I believe they had one seat that changed over, but the mayor is still there. So we'll have some consistency amongst the talking groups that we've already had.
Okay. Also, you said you went on 2 calls yourself. How does that work? Can you give us an example of you responding?
Sure.
One
No,
lone
it's-
fireman?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully they were both lower, what I would consider lower acuity calls, but again, to Councilmember Vogel's point, we have 27 firefighters on staff. When that pager goes off, if they're not available, they're not coming. And it was one of the days where Captain Kaiser was off. I believe it was Monday of last week, which he normally doesn't work Mondays. So it just turned out that I was the only one available to respond at that time. We do have some safety valves, so it's a single station call versus both stations responding. So if, for example, I wasn't available, we could have retoned the second station to respond. That would be an option. And the next step beyond that would be to call Oak Grove or Isani or whoever the next closest neighbor would be to see if they had any available staff to respond.
With the 911 call would actually determine that. They would give you what the status of, it's on level 1 or level 10.
Right.
Okay. Also, is there minimum hours when a firefighter shows up? You got 6 guys that show up and it really only takes 3. Do you give them 1 hour or they get allowed 4 hours?
So everybody who responds to the incident gets paid the minimum amount of time, which is 1 hour of pay, whether it lasts 15 minutes. If it goes over an hour, then it goes to a second hour of pay once they go over that quarter hour mark. So 1 hour and 17 minutes would then pay them for 2 hours. So-
Sure. Okay. Well, I was, first of all, I want to tell you, I appreciate the holiday involvement you've had with our city. It was really nice, and to see you again and again. I was at the food drive with you guys as well, which there were 4 young firefighters that I could barely keep up with. And there were 2 young ladies in front of me that I could barely keep up with them, but they were, the exuberance and the enthusiasm that your firefighters showed was exemplary. Also, I was at a wrestling tournament and a young man dislocated his arm in a terrible fashion. Your guys were there in about 8 minutes or so. Again, the line showed up in about 29 minutes after the fact. So your guys did isolate him, and there was an EMT on site that they were required to have, but you guys responded, and then 40 minutes later, another wrestler and a different mat got hurt. So I saw some of the same faces back again, but again, you responded, you were there, and it took line a while to come back for that one as well. But you guys were there for aid and comfort, which is what we pay you to do. So you did a good job. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Chris, I think I already asked, but I'm gonna ask you again. Anything else?
My only question is what is driving that ambulance over 20 minutes? I see it's going down, but if that's my loved ones, 20 minutes is still too long even for 2 calls. So I'm just kind of curious about that.
Agreed. And I think we see a very common theme on 2 different sides of this issue. One, it's a staffing issue for sure. EMS, fire, police, we all have been struggling in ways that we haven't traditionally struggled, not only to recruit staff, but to retain staff. And I would argue out of those three buckets, police, fire, and EMS is probably the most challenging to retain people, both from a worker welfare perspective, speaking as somebody who worked on ambulance for 10 years, but also from a wage comparison standpoint. And it's not that we're just competing against fire and police. You know, a young person can go to college for 2 years and become a registered nurse and make $36, $37, $38 an hour, not have to be outside when it's cold, not be out in the rain, right? Have a doctor relatively close at all times, or you can go to 2 years to school to be a paramedic and make $25 an hour and not have all of those aspects. So staffing is certainly one of them. The other leg to this is volume, right? So we are in the silver tsunami now, where we're having those baby boomers that are starting to hit that age where their healthcare concerns are becoming more extravagant as they age and require more cares. I'll add a third piece to this too, is we have a significant lack of senior living facilities across the country, right? And Minnesota certainly fits within that bucket too. So we're seeing a lot of people in all areas of Minnesota that are trying to age at home because they can't get placed, even though they have medical conditions and the lack of support to facilitate them being in home, which obviously creates a high risk for them being at home. And that's where we start to see the slips, the falls, the not following through with doctor's appointments, and their condition continues to decline.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great report as always.
Thank you.
Good report. Thank you for all your service throughout the year, as well as the entire department. Question about now then, I guess. I know I haven't heard a lot on them, I guess, lately. And I know we didn't want to leave them hanging, so I just kind of wanted to touch base on them and kind of where they're at.
Yeah, so they did meet last week. They had their council meeting. They are going to offer a contract for an interim fire chief for up to 6 months. That contract has yet to be executed, so I would imagine we're still probably going to be after the holidays before that can fully be executed. I did meet with their incoming mayor about 2.5 weeks ago, and we had a great discussion and left kind of a soft offer on the table that we don't want to leave them in the lurch. We want to make sure that this transition can be as smooth as it can be. Obviously, they have political changes. They just lost their city administrator, so they're really kind of almost Groundhog's Day a little bit over there. So I did offer the incoming mayor kind of that soft discussion of, we want to make sure we do this transition the right way. It has to be amicable between the two cities, the two city councils. So we left that opportunity for discussion, and I would anticipate we'll hear more in the next couple of weeks of what that potentially may look like.
Okay. Thank you. That is all I have. So we will turn it over to city administrator, year-end report.
Mayor and council, so I like to wrap up every year the staffing side of things with a final report of the year. So jumping right in, we kind of look at some of the administrative projects. This year we completed 4 elections, so that was extremely taxing on our capacity, but Jenny did a great job, and her team and all of our election judges, that we are very thankful that they come in and give us their time for a day and ×4 this year. So elections went very successful for us, and we have good support from our community. Legislatively, we continue to watch for those municipal and employment impacts. We are gearing up for another year, as they did not make movement on some of the issues they were trying to get passed that are going to be fairly impactful for zoning and permits with the cities, so we will continue to watch that. We did have a mid-year change with Robert Bauer going out and Mark coming on board. Ordinances, we went through 8 ordinances this year, a lot of housekeeping, golf carts, and a few administrative. Our EDA held 1 meeting this year, and that was to work with our continued partnership with North Shore Development on the multifamily project across the street, and we continue to meet with them and make progress on that project. The Highway 47 reconstruction, we are several years in and several years to go, but we did receive our regional solicitation funds this year, which was a huge accomplishment as far as the pavement up portion of this project. And we will continue then to work with the pavement down with the lobbying group, state funds, and then also go back to some federal appropriations and try to get as much funding support as we can. The City Hall Fire Station facility, this is our first city council meeting and we are in. The other city council building is now vacant and we are trying to figure out where to put everything, but we are very thankful to be here. We are very thankful for our Stall and our Broughton teams. Got Stall in here tonight. They made this project easy in the scope of a project this size. The communication and teamwork with all three of us on this project were wonderful and we were very successful. And then also we had the Care 11 event where we got to celebrate one of our local athletes going to Paris. And we all got up very early to cheer on Dakota Lindworm on a chilly morning. So that was a lot of our successes that we really came to a community as a whole on. Council had all of their 24 meetings, 2 special meetings and 7 work sessions. So we were down a few work sessions from last year. You didn't get to see me quite as much. With the parks, we had continue the financial, reviews of the parks. We were able to get our Parks Commission going this year, as well as complete our Delwood Trail. Our farmers market was extremely successful this year and everything doubled from our attendance to our vendors. Worked a lot with our tree replacement in parks and then had the leash cutting in our dog park. So with that, we also looked at 8 land use applications and continued to work on the 2 housing projects, Eagle Point at Vista Prairie, which is very quickly going up. They are looking at a November, December leasing. And then again, that North Shore development, we've made some great success with them and had a lot of conversations on how to get them from today to breaking ground. With the human resources side of things, we do have 5 employees that are over that 20 years with Barry at a 28-year employee. So we're extremely proud of our staff. We've got a wonderful team. We've got 6 that are over 15 years. And their time and dedication to stay with St. Francis and continue to work with the city and all of its changes is greatly appreciated. 2024, we had 3 changes in positions. We started the hybrid position with the fire department with an administrative captain. We hired a full-time facility tech and then also changed the deputy tech position to an accounting tech office assistant, and all 3 of those positions are going on. We had a little bit of turnover this year, and one of those was our retirement for Lori Roberts in the police department after celebrating 16 years with St. Francis. So we thanked her for all of her support and all of the work she had done with the police department and her efforts here. So our personnel committee continues to meet and they are on a structured 2 meetings a year. We keep our housekeeping up on our personnel policy. It was nice to go from several decades behind to now have a routine where we're doing this annually and keeping up with some of these state and legal challenges. Compensation study was also part of some of these personnel issues and the HR aspects, and we're successful in working with our 2 bargaining units and getting contracts done this year before they actually expired, which was a success for the city as well as the. So with finance, we continue to have all of our documents are on the website. So if you're looking for any of our finance documents, they're all out on our website, from the city budget to our long-term financial plan. Our capital improvement plan from 2025 to 29, and then our annual budgeting process, which we wrapped up at the last meeting. Looking forward, Highway 47 is going to be a very big topic, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years even. This is something we're going to have to work hard to get from today to get through that project. We've got a good team with MnDOT, WSB, and Anoka County. Anoka County has been a pretty strong partner. We're still working on even just some of the agreements as they are taking a share of some of this and working with us through it. Legislation, we've already seen, I've seen the first draft of a bill that we're going to be putting on the floor to get some financial help. So we are starting strong. It sounds like the Office of Reservoir is filling up quickly. So we're trying to get a bill in before we're at the bottom of the pile. So we're going to continue to work on that. And then also make sure you all have the dates for the local officials meetings here in 2025. You are all invited to those. You should be getting from Anoka County on those. And then I just want to thank council and staff. We've accomplished a lot this year. We had a lot that we got through. And a lot of big projects, from writing policy to HR changes, to getting to this building, and we really did a lot of work and got here. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions. Otherwise, I say so.
Thank you. Sarah?
I don't have any questions. It's fun to look back over the year and see what we've done and how things have changed and improved. I just want to extend my gratitude and thanks to our staff. I've been part of lots of councils, going to different meetings in different cities, and I have to say that our staff is exceptional. I have never seen a group that works so great together and just really supports each other. And I think that's the biggest asset that we can give to our residents.
Thank you. Kevin?
Again, I want to, what Sarah said, double, same thing, you guys, it's quite a team. I like the way Kate wrapped up the bottom of her statement here. If you can refresh me, Kate, what is North Shore? Am I missing? It's not the Hiller property, are you talking behind the Ramaker property,
Correct. Mayor and Council, that's the multifamily that we met with back in February, where we talked about TIF, and then they are looking at the Ramaker property and the property to the north.
Okay, all right, thank you on that. Again, I can't say enough about our staff as well. Again, when you put your work down and what you actually do, there's a hell of a lot going on here. So I appreciate it, and we appreciate it as stuff is handed to us kind of on a platter, and we show up 2 times plus sometimes 4 times a month, and it's it's ready made. All we have to do is dissect it and kind of review it and stuff. But so we really appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Crystal?
I don't have any questions. I will say that working with you guys, with staff throughout the city has been remarkable. I have asked some pretty strange questions, and at no point has anybody said, "Are you kidding me?" So I really appreciate that. And the city of St. Francis is lucky to have all of you. Thanks.
Mark?
It does sound like a broken record when it gets to me, but I agree. I don't have any major concerns with staff. Everybody seems to be going the same direction, and I'm encouraged by that. The only question I have is our legislatures, Representative Lawrence and Senator Matthews. Have they ever been here to a meeting?
Mayor and Council, they have not. One of our goals with working with our lobbyists is to get them here, and maybe even for something as informal as coffee and a roll on some Friday morning or something, to try to just get that introduction and get them to understand really where our needs are coming from.
I agree. I hope to make that happen.
I don't have any questions. Obviously, we've been here and been involved for the last year, and I appreciate everything all of our staff does. You guys do an amazing job. Like I say, it's a broken record again. To reiterate what Kevin said too. I mean, you guys do the bulk of the work. We might agree, we might disagree, but at the end of the day, it's ready for us to review and look at. So we do appreciate that. So I have no questions. With that, we'll move on to council member reports, and we'll start with Kevin.
I attended the tree lighting, which was pretty awesome to see our community come together. The Bridge Church does a fantastic job, and again, that's kind of the glue that holds a city like ours together. Also attended the food drive. There was 4 exuberant, as I was telling the chief firefighters there in front of me. We walked behind not the assistant chief's car, but behind the truck, because the siren and the horn is quite loud. But those 4 guys really, they had their gear on, and they were pretty much ran most of the time, and they were happy to do it. It was amazing. There was a couple young ladies in front of me that were kind of feeding the candy canes out as well. But it's neat to see the citizens come out, and you come around the corner and it's quiet. It's like, well, this is kind of boring. And all of a sudden there's people just coming out, and there's people, you can see the silhouette in their living room windows, and they're waiting for it. So they kind of a trickle and kind of turned it into a flow, and then kind of never really was a flood, but it was still amazing to see. And some of the neighborhoods too, especially, they were expecting you. And if you guys hadn't come, I think there would have been anarchy. Because there was babies bundled up and moms and dads out there, and a couple people were actually giving the firefighters treats and whatnot back and forth. So it was really cool to see. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Sarah?
I was was at the tree lighting as well. It was, we had to change it from Wednesday to Saturday, which ended up being great. We had a really good turnout, so that was great. And I too got to participate with the Santa on the fire truck. I was the west side. I got to go with Santa Pfeiffer, so that was that was fun. And we had was it the Cub Scouts? Is that who? And they had a lot of energy. They were running up to people's doors, asking them if they wanted candy canes, and people were so excited. Lots of Merry Christmas, lots of thank yous. The amount of food that was at that fire station at the end of the night was very impressive. So thank you to our residents who showed up and came out. It was a little chilly out there. There were a couple times though where we were talking and we're like, we're kind of warm. And then we'd turn the corner and the wind would come back and we're like, oh, good. But yeah, I haven't had an opportunity, I guess, not that it wasn't given to us, but I just didn't take it to do that. And I think that's a really great event. It was really fun to get out there and see our firefighters and their families. We had a lot of families that were with us, so that was fun. Just a great group of individuals out there. I'm not sure how many total, but there was a lot of us out there, so it was great.
Thank you. Mark?
Had a good meeting with Kate and gave me a tour of the building here, so I appreciate that. And then I also had a long conversation here with Mayor Rolfe from Oak Grove. So get the ball rolling on maybe some cooperative efforts, so. That's awesome.
So,
I didn't attend any of that. I have a husband at home who's broken at the moment, but I do want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you on this council, to the residents, to the staff. You guys have been wonderful to work with. Very informative, very inviting. I've appreciated my time here and I hope you continue to do the great work that you're doing moving forward. That's all.
thank you. I'd like to thank you, Crystal, for filling my seat when I moved over. I've enjoyed doing this, being the mayor for 17 months. Now I get to turn it over to Mark. I will be moving over, so I still get to serve for another 4 years at least, I will enjoy that, I'm sure, as well, just as much as I have the last few. It's been great. It's been a great year. I really appreciate staff, our police department, fire department, public works, everybody. Thank you, Stahl, Brunton, and definitely all the contractors to help make this building possible. And I give a special thanks to Mayor Steve Feldman, who's no longer with us. Sorry. I'm just sad that he's not here tonight, sitting where I'm sitting, as I know he would enjoy that. So. All right. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Hudvig. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is closed at 6:51 PM.